This podcast episode could very well be a segment of Unsolved Mysteries. The puzzle here being, why is there a Kevin O'Leary in our lives? Media personality, purported financial expert, and general nuisance. This week, a look at the man behind that shifty smile. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, commentary, or story from our lives.
Season 20, Chapter 11, Kevin O'Leary.
Sorry, Mom. I know that you always said that if you can't say something nice about someone, that it's best to say nothing at all. Normally, that's a fine policy. But I'm going to add a proviso to that rule. If there's nothing nice you can say about someone, you can't just sit there and say nothing. Kevin O'Leary. Why pick on him? Well, he's deserving, and he's irked me for the entire 21st century, and I've never openly said anything, so it's time. Kevin O'Leary, now in his 70s, is a Canadian-born American businessman investor. Current net worth around $400 million. Not exactly chump change, but in the billionaire circles he likes to run around in, he would be the loser. O'Leary is famous for his run on Canadian television's Dragon's Den and the American version of it, Shark Tank.
Who are the Sharks? They're self-made millionaire and billionaire investors who are entrepreneurs themselves. Kevin O'Leary is a venture capitalist who turned a $10,000 loan into a software business worth $4.2 billion.
Fun fact, Dragon's Den came before Shark Tank. I just found this out because I'm not a big fan of either show. It goes like this. The original concept of a show where rich investors are pitched small or unique or growing business ideas and then decide which one they're going to throw money at, all started in Japan in 2001. The show was called Tigers of Money. 4 years later, the BBC ripped it off, spun it off, whatever, calling it Dragon's Den. A year after that, the Canadian CBC version premiered, and by 2009, the US ABC television network ripped it off, calling it Shark Tank. Interesting, isn't it, how big money perceives themselves as tigers, dragons, and sharks? I suppose. I guess you can't succeed in business being a pussycat or a guppy. You got to be a tiger or a shark, or a mythological animal that never really existed and was created by ancient peoples by way of explaining these giant dinosaur fossils they began to find. Fossils must be dragon, but I guess Dinosaur Fossil Den just doesn't have the same zing to it as a TV title. Yeah, so, Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, all a ripoff of Japanese TV. Speaking of ripoffs, back to Kevin O'Leary. Noteworthy that once the cameras stop rolling, Kevin O'Leary often backs out of promises to invest. He also hosted part of Discovery Channel's Project Earth, a documentary mini-series where scientists experimented with radical geoengineering ideas to combat climate change. Kevin O'Leary saves the planet? God help us all. Some may know Kevin O'Leary from the 2009 half-hour business show called The Lang and O'Leary Exchange. Those two had hosted a previous show on the Business News Network called Squeeze Play. Amanda Lang left CBC amid allegations that she had tried to sabotage a 2013 story about the Royal Bank while in a relationship with an RBC board member. She wasn't fired from the CBC, she just left on her own for new opportunities. Oh, sidebar, the Lang thing happened right around the same time the CBC did fire rising media star Evan Solomon for using his journalistic profile and influence to secretly broker art deals. And Lang and Solomon were quickly snapped up by CTV Bell Media, where I guess the ethical guidelines are a little more relaxed. Bell also, and right around the same time, hired Leslie Roberts, a global TV host who had to resign amid his own ethics scandal. Are you unethical? Well, there's a home for you at Bell Media. Amanda Lang is still at CTV Bell Media. while Leslie Roberts and Evan Solomon left media to enter politics, a field where ethics don't really matter. Roberts is with Ensemble Montreal. It's a municipal party, and Solomon is an elected member of the Mark Carney government, serving as Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation. Speaking of fake intelligence, back to Kevin O'Leary. O'Leary famously bombed out of Celebrity Jeopardy! Football QB Aaron Rodgers won that episode. A guy who takes repeated blows to the head beat Kevin O'Leary. In the category Cities in Song, O'Leary guessed New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey, my kind of town. Unbelievably, O'Leary still gets paraded out on TV as a financial expert. CNN still uses him. It diminishes CNN to me. Don't they do research on guests? Don't they know O'Leary's history? And what exactly is his history? Well, okay, I'll quickly jump through the early stuff to get to the good parts. O'Leary was born and raised in Montreal. At a young age wanted to be a photographer, but family members convinced him that he must do something more practical. He ended up with an MBA in 1980 from the Ivey Business School at Western in Ontario. During school, he worked part-time as a brand manager for Nabisco, the cat food division. After he got his degree, he and some buddies founded SET Set, Special Event Television. It was an independent TV production company that produced such things as Don Cherry's Grapevine, among others. His next chapter is Key, specifically Soft Key, a company he co-founded that published and distributed CD-based software. This is in the late 80s into the 90s. If you remember that as the real start of home computers, the proliferation of that industry. O'Leary had convinced some manufacturers to bundle his software with their hardware. So when you bought some equipment, you also got these jewel-cased CD-ROMs that were soft key products. They would help teach you mathematics, reading, even typing. Sometimes there were games you could play. And note, it was all freeware or shareware that Softkey would just bundle and package and make money on. They created nothing. Softkey started to buy out their rivals. They went into debt to do it. They eventually bought TLC, the learning company. It was a hostile takeover, adopting that as their new company name. TLC then proceeded to lose money over the coming years. Now comes the good part, also known as the bad part. In 1999, O'Leary sells his so-called software company to Mattel for a reported $4.2 billion. Mr. Ice-T, if you please?
That's billion with a B.
Right, 4.2 billion. By the way, if O'Leary was a rapper, I'd call him Fat Shady. Quick review. Your friend and mine, Kevin O'Leary, packages up a bunch of freeware and shareware, loses millions, turns around and sells it to Mattel for billions.
That's billion with a B.
From the get-go, this deal is labeled as suspicious, and that's being kind. Others have called it the most disastrous acquisition in business history. How's that for a distinction, huh? The most disastrous acquisition in business history. Immediately, there were allegations of hidden losses and overinflated revenue. I'm paraphrasing here, but this is from actual business journalistic sources. O'Leary sold TLC to Mattel at the height of the dot-com boom, dumping a company that was being held together by duct tape. And he sold it to an old traditional toy maker who had become convinced that this acquisition would help them transition into the electronic age, computer-based learning, the new age of toys. Yeah, sure, but remember, TLC was freeware, shareware, and crap. Mattel paid over $4 billion for a company that was soon discovered to be worth less than $100 million.
Kevin O'Leary is a venture capitalist who turned a $10,000 loan into a software business worth $4.2 billion.
Mattel stock plummeted. Mattel shareholders filed a lawsuit alleging that O'Leary and TLC overinflated TLC's value by using accounting tricks to falsify the quarterly profit reports. The Mattel CEO was forced to resign. O'Leary was fired, and they settled out of court with shareholders for around $122 million. Mattel was never closer to complete collapse, and they had to fire hundreds of employees. O'Leary personally left with around $12 million in his wallet through the sale of stock and his severance package. Incidentally, O'Leary luckily had dumped his stock just weeks before the fit had hit the shan. There's your Mr. Wonderful and his business acumen, so sought after by television shows and television cable news. Mr. Wonderful, the persona, of course, that he gave himself. No one called him Mr. Wonderful until Kevin O'Leary began to call himself that. Mr. Wonderful. I don't call him that. Actually, I prefer Mr. Dreadful. The Mattel-TLC deal is historic for all the wrong reasons. You might be saying, sure, in big business, there's always deals that are a little shady, but when it borders on fraud, and yes, Mattel could have had better due diligence, but I guess there were elements of trust and naivete. They were shown the TLC books and numbers, and they believed them. A good con is a good con, I guess. Even the shareholders didn't go after O'Leary and TLC because, blood from a stone. Everybody knew they had no money, so they went after Mattel. O'Leary spent much of the time during the lawsuit saying, none of this is my fault. As I said, Mattel was the one that eventually had to pay out. But oddly, no criminal charges ever came out of this. Shortly after, O'Leary and his backers tried to buy Atari. They had this idea that they were going to start a video game TV channel. Didn't happen. O'Leary took some of his Mattel money and invested it in Storage Now, a storage and locker company. He's been involved in various ventures and investment companies, including one that he started himself. I don't know anyone who would trust O'Leary with their money, considering his track record. But, people spend money on all kinds of TV preachers who promise salvation. Hey, Google this question. Do people lose money when investing in Kevin O'Leary Ventures? The first word you will see is yes. A short while back, you might have seen Kevin O'Leary in TV commercials, sporting not his Mr. Wonderful black business suit, but loud floral shirts, pajamas, t-shirts, etc. This was his venture called Wonder Ads, a scheme that would help small businesses afford to advertise on television. Don't know what happened to that? Don't care. For me, it goes under the category of send Kevin O'Leary money. He's also an investor in gold, crypto, and now has an AI plan to install a huge data campus somewhere in Utah. Most notable now because of all the massive protests there against it. Actually, O'Leary's venture into crypto is a giant mess. Remember in 2022, Sam Bankman-Fried, then crypto wonder boy, and his company FTX? You may remember a ton of TV ads. Who endorsed FTX? Well, it was Tom Brady, Shaquille O'Neal, even Larry David.
Like I was saying, it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
Kevin O'Leary was a brand spokesman and shareholder of FTX. This could be its own podcast, but quick version. Conservative estimates say that about $11 billion in investments went missing.
That's billion with a B.
Sam Bankman-Fried charged with fraud. He's currently serving a 25-year prison term. Somehow O'Leary walks the earth a free man. Small justice that O'Leary insisted that FTX pay him for his services in crypto, the same crypto that has vanished, leaving Mr. Dreadful crying tears. You also may remember O'Leary's shiny noggin popping up in January of 2025 at the monthly Mar-a-Lago ass-kissing conference. By the way, those are now weekly, but you got to book far ahead. O'Leary's guest at Mar-a-Lago was Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, and he facilitated a Trump-Smith confab at which they discussed energy, tariffs, and trade. Sounds treasonous to me. Also spotted that weekend was author Jordan Peterson. I saw the pictures. Trump, Smith, O'Leary, Peterson. I thought it was the apocalypse. Apparently the 2-day trip cost Alberta taxpayers about $10,000 because, Trump comps no one. And hey, no loving look at Kevin O'Leary would be complete without the boating story. August 24th, 2019, a dark and moonless night on Ontario's Lake Joseph, the lake where many famous and well-heeled individuals have what are called summer cottages, but are actually spectacular multi-million-dollar massive homes. Kevin O'Leary, his wife Linda, and a family friend are returning home by speedboat after a dinner party at a neighbor's cottage. The boat collided with a larger pontoon-style boat, resulting in the deaths of 2 people on that other boat, 64-year-old Gary Potlash and 48-year-old Susanna Brito. Kevin O'Leary claimed he was a passenger on his own boat and that his wife was driving. Linda O'Leary was charged with careless operation of a vessel under the Canada Shipping Act. She pleaded not guilty. It took over 2 years, but an Ontario judge ruled she was not guilty and not criminally responsible in the deaths. O'Leary's lawyers claimed that the other boat had no lights, making it virtually invisible in the darkness. Multiple civil suits were subsequently filed. The family of Susanna Brito filed a lawsuit against the O'Learys, seeking damages for wrongful death. Kevin and Linda O'Leary filed a lawsuit in federal court against the owners-operators of the other boat, seeking damages for economic loss, pain, and suffering. Jesus, you're a millionaire. 2 other people died, and you're suing for damages and suffering? Man, that really is TLC reasoning. Hey, none of this is my fault. The lawsuits were only recently settled, earlier this year. It was a confidential out-of-court settlement. It was after a federal court ruled that the liability was limited to $1 million each for both boat owners under the Marine Liability Act. Okay? Questions remained. For example, on that night, Mrs. O'Leary was administered an alcohol screening test. She registered an alert. She was subsequently served a 3-day driver's license suspension. That's according to OPP documents. Linda O'Leary claimed that she had a small glass of vodka after the crash and before the test. She couldn't remember who handed her the glass. There was only 2 other people on the boat, the friend, the husband. And which genius thought that it would be a good idea to take a shot of booze right after a boating accident just before the cops show up? And why was there vodka and a glass handy on a speedboat in the first place? Their lawyer, he's one of those high-paid Greenspans, also claimed that there was security footage that clearly showed Linda was driving and not Kevin, as many had suspected. But you said that the other boat was virtually invisible, yet somehow some cottage security footage was able to pick up your boat and identify who was driving? Hey, if clear footage from a dark and moonless night across a black lake proves Kevin's innocence, well, I guess the justice system works. If Kevin O'Leary just didn't have this reputation of trying to get away with stuff, I'd probably feel better about the whole thing. I don't know that Linda O'Leary took one for the team that night, and I certainly can't stop the rumors. There's probably a million Kevin O'Learys out there. Moneybags, unscrupulous. I guess we can't round them all up and hand them all a go directly to jail card, although it would be fun to give that a shot. So we can't do that, but then why put him, on TV? Why seek out their knowledge and advice? He's not even that TV friendly. It's the same mistake we make with all rich people, especially the men. They put a few bucks together, get themselves a nice black suit, and that lends us to believe that they must know something worth sharing. Dragon and shark are not two animals I'd associate with Kevin O'Leary. Matter of fact, the animal I'm thinking of looks like a small horse, except it's got long ears and makes a braying sound. Mr. Dreadful.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. Larry Fedoruk 37 at gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.